Please be seated. Well, I'm so glad to be here this morning, and so glad that you're here. And God bless our mothers on this day, right?
Amen.
You know, ironically, believe it or not, out of all the crazy things that our representatives in Congress are prone to commemorate and recognize, in 1908, believe it or not, Congress flat out refused and rejected a proposal to recognize a day honoring our mothers. But gradually, over the following 16 years, every single state did so, leading to President Woodrow Wilson declaring it a national holiday starting in 1914. Now, other parts of the world celebrate it differently. Here it is a civil occasion honoring all mothers, while in historically Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox countries, the occasion is strongly associated with venerating the Virgin Mary, or as our Orthodox brothers and sisters refer to her, the God-bearer. I actually like best the name given to the day in the United Kingdom. There they call it Mothering Day. As many have been mothered by someone other than their biological mother, it simply seems more fitting to me. However, our church also sets aside this day to celebrate one of our tradition's most saintly mothers, Julian of Norwich, a remarkable 14th century woman who has much to tell us relevant to our present time. If and when you find yourself troubled by present circumstances and losing hope, I urge you to turn to this blessed woman. She writes, "On one occasion our good Lord told me, 'Every kind of thing will be all right.' He desires us to understand that not only does he concern himself with great and noble things, but equally with small and simple things. We too should realize that the smallest thing will not be forgotten. Now there are many acts committed which to us seem so evil and so harmful that we desire and despair of any good resulting from them. While we are in sorrow and mourning concerning these things, we cannot relax in God's exalted and wondrous wisdom. For our reason is now so blinded, weak, and ignorant that we cannot see the Trinity's strength and goodness. So God tells us, 'You will yourself behold that all will be well.' It is as though he were telling us, take it now in faith and trust, and in the end you will see truly in all fullness and joy. The Trinity will accomplish an action on the last day. What it will be and how it will be accomplished, no creature lower than Christ knows, and so shall it remain veiled until the act is accomplished. And he wishes us to know this so that our spirits might be surrendered peacefully into love, and we might then ignore every disturbance which thwarts our true rejoicing in God. Julian, a blessed lady. She was born in the 14th century, and when she was 30 years old, she became gravely ill and was expected to die. Then the medical crisis passed, and she had a series of 15 visions and brought her great peace and joy. She became an anchoress, living in a small hut attached to the church in Norwich, England. There she devoted the rest of her life to prayer, writing down and contemplating her visions, and providing pastoral counseling to some of the most influential people of her time. Her account of her visions comprised the first book written by a female in English and was titled Revelations of Divine Love. To fully appreciate Julian and what she has to say to us today, we really must understand the setting she wrote in and the contrast it provides to our own times. Julian and the people of Norwich saw the assassination of an Archbishop of Canterbury, nationwide rioting by the poor and the peasants' rebellion, the 100 Years' War, the Great Schism, which led to 3 simultaneous popes, and the devastation of the Great Plague. The plague, called the Black Death, struck Norwich, where Julian was a young woman, and before she became an anchoress. Since Norwich was the center of trade with the continent and the second most important and populated city in England, it was a likely target for the spread of that disease. When it struck, the disease wiped out 1/2 of Norwich's population. Throughout Europe, 25 million, 1/3 of the entire population, died within 5 years. Believe it or not, it took 400 years before Europe's population equaled again the pre-Black Death figures. Around Norwich, the population of entire villages were killed in a matter of days, leaving men, women, and children to decompose in their homes and churches. The assumption is that Julian lost her entire family and took shelter in a religious community. From there, she became an anchoress. Children especially suffered during that time. A common nursery rhyme used by children living through this ordeal is one that we all grew up with, not knowing its origin. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall there. Ring around the rosy, rosary beads give you God's help. A pocket full of posies used to stop the odor of rotting bodies, which was at one point thought to cause the plague. Posies were also used widely by doctors to protect them from the infected plague patients. Ashes, ashes. The church burned the dead when burying them became too laborious. We all fall down, dead. Remarkably, despite the difficult times Julian lived through, there is not one specific reference to any of these social catastrophes in her book. Why? It is because Julian went beyond the darkness in the world around her, transcended it, and oriented herself to what is eternal. 600 years after her death, Julian's insights are now providing strength and assurance for our own time, a time when we come to the conclusion often that things are grave. During those 600 years, nothing was written of Julian, believe it or not. Her manuscript was neglected in dusty libraries. 600 years. But during the late 20th and early 21st century, no fewer than 20 books, 20, have been written about Julian and her visions. A monastic order has made her their patron, and Julian gatherings, festivals, and retreats focusing on her visions and silent prayer are held throughout the English-speaking world. So, what is it about this obscure 14th century English anchoress that is stirring the hearts and minds of some of the greatest spiritual leaders of our time? I think it is her ability to capture for us that unique sense of wonder and security that devout Christians get from their belief in God's resolute, forgiving love for them. For Julian, God's love never ends, never falters, never weakens, never changes, regardless of the sins and offenses that we commit. With a psychological insight centuries before it became popular, Julian declared that what we perceive to be God's wrath is our own wrath projected onto him. There is in God no blame for human sin, only pity for the pain which sin produces in human beings. In Julian's understanding, God does not call us to be other than what we are, what he created. We are not expected to repudiate our humanity in favor of some notion of sainthood, but to rediscover our true humanity, a humanity modeled after his most complete self-disclosure, Jesus. Now, Julian is no Pollyanna, believe me. She could hardly be, given the difficult times that she lived through. She sees humans as incapable of avoiding sin and recognizes and confronts the conundrum that our loving God did not create some sort of Disneyland, but rather a dynamic world that often leads to great suffering. She does not solve the conundrum. She does not accuse God of game playing or insincerity, but faces the incongruity, recognizing that she does not understand the paradox. Her willingness to leave questions unanswered and problems unsolved may possibly be her greatest teaching for us today. She recaptures and restates the reality that God, as God, will always be beyond our complete understanding. Yet, thankfully, we are left with the certainty of his eternal love for us, however that will ultimately look like. Julian assures us that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. So on behalf of Julian, take heart. Whatever comes, whatever we face, our eternal future is secure. Amen.